My name is Natalie Owens. I am 34 years old. And 6 years ago, without a word of explanation, my brother stopped speaking to me. No call, no message, no argument that I could point to as the reason. One day he was there reliably, predictably, the older brother who texted me bad jokes and showed up to help me move apartments and called our mother every Sunday. And then he wasn't. His number still rang. He just didn't answer it. My texts were read and not replied to. My emails vanished into a silence, so complete it had a physical quality to it, like pressing your hand against a wall where a door used to be. I asked her mother. She said she didn't know. I believed her because she was as confused as I was, and confusion looked specific on her face. I asked mutual friends. No one had an explanation that held together. I stopped asking after about a year. Not because I stopped wanting to know, but because the asking had become its own kind of pain, and I had a life to build, and I was going to build it whether or not I understood why my brother had decided I was not part of it. I built it. Then on a Thursday afternoon in November, 6 years after the last time I spoke to my brother, a nurse appeared at the door of my office at St. Clement's Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I work as a transplant coordinator. She said, "There's a man in reception. He says he's your brother." I went completely still. The hallway between my office and the reception area is 47 steps. I know because I walk it multiple times every day, have walked it for 4 years, and know its length the way you know the length of any path you travel constantly. I counted them that afternoon without meaning to, the way your mind counts things when it needs something mechanical to hold on to. He stood up when he saw me come through the door. 6 years older. The same eyes, dark brown, slightly narrowed at the outer corners, our father's eyes that we both inherited. Thinner than I remembered. Something in his face that had not been there when he was 28 and that had accumulated in his absence from my life. I stopped. I waited. I had things I could have said. 6 years of things. But I waited to hear what had brought him to the reception area of a hospital where I work on a Thursday afternoon in November. He said nothing about the years. Nothing about the silence. He looked at me with those familiar eyes and he said, "I need one of your kidneys." The reception area was not empty. There were 2 other staff members behind the desk and a family seated near the window waiting for news about someone. They went quiet in the specific way that people go quiet when they are trying not to be visible in a moment that is not theirs. I looked at my brother, the one who had left without a word, the one who had not looked back for 6 years, the one who was standing in a hospital reception area asking me for an organ before he had said a single word about any of it. I gave him one answer, just one. When he heard it, his face went completely still. And everything he had never said in 6 years of silence finally came out. But before I tell you what actually happened, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's begin. My brother's name is Kevin. He is 4 years older than me, 38 now, 32 when he disappeared from my life. We grew up together in Columbus, Ohio, the 2 children of Gerald and Marie Owens, and we had the relationship that siblings have when they are close enough in age and similar enough in temperament to understand each other, but different enough to occasionally drive each other completely insane. He was the steady one. I was the scattered one. He planned, I improvised. He thought before he spoke. I spoke, and then thought about whether I should have. We had the specific complementary dynamic of siblings who have, over years, figured out how to navigate each other's edges, and the friendship that develops from that navigation is one of the more durable kinds. Or I had thought it was durable. 6 years of silence suggested I had miscalculated its durability. I had gone into transplant coordination after a nursing degree and 2 years of clinical work, drawn to it by the combination of the medical complexity and the profound human stakes of what it involved. Getting it right, the matching, the timing, the navigation of what are always emotionally charged situations on all sides, mattered in the most concrete sense. Lives depended on getting it right. I was good at the work. I had been at St. Clement's for 4 years and had built a reputation among the surgeons and the patients and the families for being thorough and honest and capable of holding steady in difficult moments. I held steady in difficult moments because I had practiced. The reception area of my own hospital was a more difficult moment than most. I said, "Come with me." Not because I was ready to help him. Not because I had decided anything. But because whatever was about to happen was not going to happen in a reception area with 2 desk staff and a grieving family as an audience. I took him to a small family consultation room off the main hallway, a room I had used many times to have conversations that required privacy and quiet. I closed the door. We sat across from each other at a small table. The room had a box of tissues on one end and a landscape print on the wall, and the particular contained atmosphere of a space designed to hold difficult news. I looked at him. He looked back. And in the 4 or 5 seconds of silence before either of us spoke, I saw something I had not registered in the reception area. The full extent of how unwell he looked. Not dramatically, not emergently, but with the specific pallor and the specific thinness of someone whose body has been managing something serious for long enough that it shows in the accumulation of small signs. How long? I asked. He looked slightly surprised that this was my first question. Diagnosed 14 months ago, he said. Polycystic kidney disease. Both kidneys. I've been on dialysis for 4 months. I nodded slowly. I knew the disease. I knew dialysis. I knew the transplant waitlist, the years it could take, the uncertainty of a cadaveric match, the outcomes differential between a living donor and a waitlist kidney. I knew all of it professionally and precisely. Kevin, I said, why did you stop speaking to me? His jaw tightened. I came to talk about the kidney. I know why you came, I said. I'm asking why you left. A long pause. He looked at the table, the landscape print, his hands. That's not, he started. It is, I said. It's the only thing I want to talk about before we talk about anything else. 6 years, Kevin. 6 years, and not one word. You don't get to skip to the part where I help you without going through the part where you explain what happened. He was quiet for a long time. I waited. I am professionally trained to wait through difficult silences, and I used every bit of that training in that room. And then he talked. The reason Kevin had stopped speaking to me 6 years ago was not about me. I want to say that first because it is the most important sentence in this story, and I did not know it for 6 years, and not knowing it had done a specific kind of damage that deserves to be named. It was about himself. 6 years ago, Kevin had been in the process of a private collapse. Not a dramatic one, not the kind that announces itself. The quiet kind, the kind that happens when a person has been managing more than they can manage for longer than they can manage it, and the structure finally gives way in a private place where no one can see. His marriage had ended. He had not told our family this was happening. His business, a small logistics company he had built over 5 years, had failed in the aftermath of the divorce in the specific way that businesses fail when the person running them stops being able to give them what they need. He had lost the house. He had moved into an apartment he was ashamed of. He had accumulated debt he was ashamed of. He had become a version of himself that he was ashamed of. And he had cut off contact with everyone who had known the previous version. Not only me, our mother for 8 months, though he had eventually resumed contact with her. More limited than before, but resumed. 2 close friends from college. His ex-wife's family, though that was circumstantially required. And me specifically and completely for reasons that he was only now in this consultation room actually articulating. You're the one who would have asked, he said. You would have called every day. You would have shown up. You would have wanted to fix it, and I couldn't be fixed, and I couldn't stand the idea of you watching me not be fixable. I sat with that. So you protected yourself from my caring about you, I said. I protected myself from my own shame, he said. You were the person I least wanted to see what I had become. Because I mattered most, I said. He did not answer that directly, but he did not deny it. And then you got sick, I said. And then I got sick, he said. And after 14 months of managing that alone, you came here. Yes. And you walked into my reception area and asked for my kidney before you said a word about any of this. A pause. Yes. I looked at him. My brother. 4 years older. 38 years old with failed kidneys and 4 months of dialysis, and 6 years of a shame so consuming that it had been preferable to him, for all of that time, to the alternative of being known by the people who loved him. Kevin, I said. What did you think I was going to say? He looked at me with those dark eyes and he said, with an honesty that was clearly costing him something, "I thought you were going to say no. I thought you were going to tell me I didn't deserve it after what I'd done. And I thought," he stopped, "I thought you'd probably be right. I am a transplant coordinator. I know what a living kidney donation means. I know the evaluation process, the medical workup, the psychological assessment, the surgical risk, the recovery, the long-term implications for the donor. I know it the way I know few other things, which is professionally and completely. I also know what 6 years of silence means. I know what it means to build a life around an absence you don't understand, and to make peace with not understanding, and to be doing fine, genuinely fine, until a man shows up in your reception area with his father's eyes and your childhood in his face, and asks you for something that no one can ask for lightly." I told him the answer was not no. His face went still in the way I had known it would, processing, recalibrating, not yet understanding the full shape of what I had said. I told him the answer was not no, but the answer was also not yet. That before any medical evaluation could begin, before any conversation about compatibility or surgical candidacy or the transplant process, we were going to have the full conversation. Every year of it. Not because I needed to punish him or extract suffering from him as a precondition for help, but because I was not going to let him back into my life through the side door of a medical emergency without us actually knowing each other again. Without him actually being known. He would tell me everything. Not in that room. Not in one conversation, but completely and honestly, and over however much time it required. And I would tell him what the 6 years had been for my side. And we would figure out together whether we were rebuilding something or starting something new, or doing some combination of both that didn't have a name yet. And then, if he wanted to, we would talk to the transplant team. He listened to all of this. His face did not move during most of it. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said, "You'd still consider it. After everything." "You're my brother," I said. That didn't stop being true. He pressed his lips together. He looked at the ceiling the way our father looked at ceilings when he was trying not to cry. "I'm sorry," he said, "for the 6 years. I'm sorry." "I know," I said. "Tell me the rest of it." He did. We sat in that consultation room for 2 hours. He told me everything he had not been able to say for 6 years, and I listened with the same attention I bring to the families I work with, fully, without rushing the difficult parts, without looking away from what was hard. He cried twice. I cried once. The box of tissues was used. The medical evaluation began 3 weeks later. I am not part of Kevin's transplant care team. That would not be appropriate given our relationship, and I recused myself formally from any involvement in his case, which was assigned to a colleague I trust completely. This is the correct and professional way to handle it, and I want to be clear that the process has been entirely separate from my professional role. What I can tell you is that the evaluation is underway, that the conversations Kevin and I committed to in that consultation room have continued, weekly, sometimes more, sometimes less, always honestly. That our mother, when I told her what had happened and what Kevin had been managing alone for 6 years, went quiet on the phone for a long time and then said, "I always knew something had broken. I just didn't know where. We know where now. We're working on it." The 6 years left a mark. I will not pretend otherwise. There are conversations Kevin and I would have had in those years that we will not get to have now. There are things that happened in my life that he missed and things in his that I missed, and the missing is real and permanent. You do not get 6 years back. That is just the truth of it. But the shame that drove the silence, the specific terror of being seen by the people who mattered most in a moment of failure, that I understand. I have felt it in smaller doses, in smaller moments. I know the instinct. I know what it is to want to disappear rather than be witnessed in a version of yourself that you cannot accept. I also know that the disappearing costs more than the witnessing would have. My brother knows that now, too. He learned it through kidney failure and dialysis and a walk down a hospital hallway and a consultation room with a landscape print on the wall. I learned it through 6 years of pressing my hand against a wall where a door used to be. We are both still learning, but we are learning together. And that is worth more than I knew how to say in that consultation room, and more than he knew how to ask for when he walked through my door. It is enough to start with. It is more than enough.